Live from the Talking Joe Studios.
It's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, Mark here. I'm with Tim and Jay, and we're just dropping a mini podcast out there on Podcast Land just to wrap up and discuss some of the news that's been happening in the world of G.I. Joe, because there's just been so much that has been going on in just literally the last day. It's ridiculous. There's been a few big things. We've seen some of the plans from IDW about their forthcoming books celebrating the 40th anniversary of G.I. Joe. We've had Hasbro Pulse announcements of the upcoming figures. We've had some news clarifying the position of IDW's publishing of G.I. Joe, and also the dropping of the Kickstarter for 3D Joe's Omnibus collection. So it's everything in the space of just a few hours. Where should we start? Tim, what would you like to talk about first?
You guys should talk about the toys, because I know you guys are both really into the classified line. Okay,
so yesterday, as at time of recording, we had the Hasbro Pulse, and there were a few new figures announced. So I'll run through them. We had Baroness repainted version of the one that came with the coil, looking a bit more like the classic Baroness without the additional gold sort of touches and so on. A Destro repaint that's a bit more like his cartoon. A triple pack of Vipers, Tomax and Zaymot. Repainted Lady J in a bit brighter colours. Gung Ho in his V1 version, colouring and a tweak to his accessories. And Stalker looking sort of very drab in his colours. It might just be the image that they shared on the screen, with a big old scarf around his neck, and then an extension of the retro O-ring line with 2 packs announced in their sort of classic 82 version 1 sort of veins. Well, not 82, 83, I guess. Cobra Commander and Duke, sort of with colouring leaning into the cartoon colours, and a double pack of Cobra Officer and Cobra Trooper. Phew. Jay, what was your reaction? What sort of made you whoop and holler when you saw those?
The first thing is I'm very, very happy that they went with the traditional acrobat look for the twins. I'm very happy about that. I was really afraid that they were going to try to modernize that, or in this issue that we just read for Devil's Due, the twins are in there, and they're kind of in just a really generic looking bad outfit, and no flair, no personality, and you look at that compared to their classic V1 outfits, and you just think, okay, yeah, I know that the classic is a little silly looking, but this is just boring. I'd rather have the slightly silly with some flair than boring. So I'm very happy that we got, or are getting, the Crimson Twins that look faithful. And I hope that they're available as a 2-pack.
Yeah, really want to see a 2-pack with the mirrored sides. That would be, I think, just
might be kind of. It'd probably be about the size of the. I don't know.
And they weren't afraid to go with the gaping open cobra mouth cod pieces as well. So
hey, that means there's hope for Dr. Mindbender. Getting to Gung Ho, I'm happy that we're getting Gung Ho version 1. This has kind of been the pattern with these figures. They drop one that you go, what? Who designed this? And then a year later they drop the real one, and you go, well, all right, thanks. See Roadblock if you don't know what I'm talking about. So Gung Ho, good. Happy to get traditional Gung Ho. Happy to get the twins. Stalker, I have been waiting since this line came out for Stalker. He's part of my holy trinity of Joes. It's Stalker, Snake Eyes, and Scarlet, and very, very happy to get Stalker. Very disappointed with the way he looks. At least in that photo, it looked very drab. The scarf looks like it covers up his entire chest, and unfortunately, I feel like we've kind of seen this with some of the other figures when they put something on their chest, and you take that off, like Firefly with the big bomb vest. It kind of leaves the chest area and the stomach area a little lacking. So I'm afraid that if we take that scarf off Stalker, he's not going to look that good. I'm just really wary of Stalker. Like I said, he's one of my favorites. And, honestly, I feel like, how do you screw Stalker up? It's like Lady J. How do you screw that up? He's a guy with a camo outfit and a beret. That's it. Period.
I think there's a couple of things there on Stalker. I think probably the photo just looks darker than
I hope
it
so.
actually will be. I don't know if that will be representative. And the scarf, I would think, is designed to be removable.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it can come off. I'm just hoping it doesn't look like he's missing something when you take it off.
But the vintage Stalker was a very, very pared back design. There wasn't an awful.
The awesome thing about Stalker was, he was part of the original 13. He was the only one in camo. I mean, he was the only one really that stood out from the rest, other than Snake Eyes, and Scarlet. But but very, very simple design. Just camouflage pants, camouflage shirt, one strap with a knife, one strap with a grenade and a bray. That's it.
I've got a question. So these O-ring figures, I've seen the photos. I didn't watch the video, the live video. The images of Cobra Commander, Duke, Cobra Soldier, Cobra Officer, they look like CG renderings. They do not look like photos of 3D objects. So do I take this to mean that these figures have been re-sculpted?
They look a little different than the originals. I commented on somebody's post. I said, why is it that these figures look like they came from a third-party manufacturer rather than Hasbro? But like you said, there is a thing at the bottom of every picture that says this is just a digital rendering. The final product may look different. But they just don't look great to me.
They're basically saying that because of all of the worldwide supply chain issues and so on, they wanted to sort of share the hype and get us excited about what's to come, and sort of let us sneak behind the curtain and see these digital renderings for these characters before the in-hand product was available. So these were all just the digital renderings, and they didn't at the reveal they didn't have anything in person which they were showing off, which is what they've been doing to date. On the Cobra Trooper and figures, I think they were saying basically they were trying to keep as authentic as possible to the originals, and the originals do look a little bit sort of derpy in their way. The head sculpt particularly, it's sort of it sort of
friendly.
It looks like it looks different to the way that the line evolved, let's say.
Okay, so
Tim described it one time as, what'd you say, Tim? Soft, kind of cute almost. Like, they're army figures, but like if you hold a figure like the original Duke or somebody in your hand, there's kind of a, I don't want to say adorable, but they're, it's like if you hold like a V1 Stalker from 1982 and you're in comparison to the 25th anniversary Stalker, it looks like the 25th is like a statue, a military soldier, and the 82 one looks like a toy. You know what I mean? There's a big difference between them, but I love them. I love the original ones. I'm not
saying I don't love them.
Get these
don't
ones.
get me wrong.
Don't get me wrong. What I'm sort of asking or stating, I'm asking for confirmation or stating that I find it really interesting, is that I know over the years fans have figured out, or Hasbro has admitted, that a lot of old toys, Hasbro no longer has the molds, can't make new editions of an old toy because the molds broke or they got lost, right? They got lost because they were like licensed out to a foreign toy company, or they're like thrown away or at the bottom of the sea or something. So what I'm asking here, or I think what I'm stating, I just find really interesting, is that Hasbro seemingly here is making new molds so that they can make new figures that look 99% identical to the original figures. And I find that really interesting because I guess there were times in the late 90s or early 2000s where with Hasbro might make a new mold from from a production toy.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get a little bit of generation loss. It's a copy of a copy, or to use a film term, like you have a film, you want to make more copies of it, you have to make an internegative from your print, and then like your interpositives from your internegative. So this thing that I don't know but I've always sort of wondered, why don't they just, I know it's expensive, I know it takes time, why don't they just make a new mold for the original toy that doesn't have that generation loss, rather than and I think that's what I'm seeing here. But then I sort of wonder, if that's the case, why not go in and add a little more detail, or make some small adjustments to, say, Duke version 1 and the original Cobra Soldier, to make them more in line with the figures 2 or 3 years later. Because I feel like if we've got animation colors and the smoothness of the animation designs for the Super 7 reaction line, then either this new line of 40th anniversary O-ring figures, it's like either this should be like an exact replica of the originals, or they should, if it's going to be like the cartoon, it's like, like there's a new comic book that's going to look kind of exactly like the cartoon. So make these kind of exactly like the cartoon. So I am happy they're doing this. But if they're replicas but not quite replicas, I don't know. I'm happy. I'm also
wary.
Well, it's like also if
Because I am.
This isn't nice of me, because it's not 1982 and the dollar doesn't go as far. But if I see a figure that's like a replica and replica packaging of a toy from 1982, and it's $12 or $17 or $22, I have a little like that. That's sort of a barrier for me, even though I understand I'm not time traveling and buying a 1982 object. And so, like in the case of the reaction figures, it's like they're too expensive, but I understand. But like, okay, that's a different thing. If from across the room, you might think it's the original figure, or like a brand new replica. How do you guys feel about the comic book news?
So I think in terms of, let's start with, I guess, the sad news, or the more shocking news of IDW losing the license for G.I. Joe. So that was sort of leaked in a few places, with such as Bleeding Cool a couple of weeks ago, but has now been formalized or confirmed in a Hollywood Reporter article, which contains quotes from IDW now, and Tom Waltz has put out a tweet as well, sort of confirming that. Let's read the blurb a second. At the end of 2022, IDW will bid a fond farewell to the publication of G.I. Joe and Transformers comic books and graphic novels, the company said in a statement provided to the Hollywood Reporter. We're exceedingly proud of our stewardship of these titles, 17 years with Robots in Disguise and 14 years with A Real American Hero, and thank the legion of fans for their unwavering support month in and month out. We're also eternally grateful to every one of the talented creators who helped bring these characters to life through our comics. And yet it's confirmed that for G.I. Joe, the company is planning to have a blowout celebration with the milestone issue 300, and also with the newly launched G.I. Joe Saturday Morning Adventures. And also with the 40th anniversary of the brand, there are several special projects also in the works to be announced. Yeah, so I think it takes us to about the end of this year, and the rumor as well is that Robert Kirkman's Skybound Image imprint is in talks to pick it up, though this doesn't yet seem to be confirmed.
I'm not really surprised that the license is going somewhere else. I feel like IDW's done some great stuff, but they've also had a lot of misses, especially in terms of their G.I. Joe universe. It seemed like, to me personally, everything went downhill really fast after Cobra Civil War. And I mean, very short. Like the last couple volumes of the book and all the stuff with the crossovers with all the other Hasbro properties just left me not interested at all. I'm glad that they're going to be able to go to 300 with A-Raw. And I was going to ask you guys if you think that that'll be the last issue.
What, the last issue of IDW's?
No, the last
run
issue of
specifically?
A-Raw will be 300.
Oh, do you think someone will pick it up after?
I don't know.
That's your question?
I mean, I'm pretty sure that it's probably going to end here. I don't know if anybody, whoever gets the next license, will try to get Larry to come and do it there. But I'm just wondering, what do you guys think? Do you think they'll stop at 300?
Yeah.
They're not going to go to like 304 and then the next month they give the license up.
I mean, they stopped Transformers Regeneration 1 at issue 100. And if you count the number of months left in the year, it would be a challenge for IDW to get enough issues out to get to 300 and also get past it.
Yeah, because we're going to be, 289 next. So yeah, we've still got
11,
11 basically to get to 100.
Oh boy,
so
right on the line.
300. So yeah, and yeah, they're going to have to probably double ship to get to 300.
And like this happens with publishers who lose licenses or who are like wrapping up one story before like a big relaunch. Probably if issue 300 is showing up in December, that also probably means that a 1 week later in December, like classic G.I. Joe volume 28 or 27 is going to show up, which will have the final like 10 or so issues in a soft cover. Because the legality of losing a license, the legality of no longer having a license is that if it's the calendar end of 2022, the licensor cannot publish anything on the first day of 2023. So it's not like, 2 months later they do like a collection and then like a hardcover and then like the other hardcover that has more issues. My gut tells me if this had been like if there hadn't been a pandemic, if the Snake Eyes movie had done a little better, I would think a future licensor would continue with issue 301. My gut sort of tells me
if Larry wanted to do it.
Well, okay, so my gut sort of tells me that I feel like there's a good chance that whoever picks up G.I. Joe will do 2 books, and one will be some other version of G.I. Joe or someone else's take on G.I. Joe, and one will be this writer who's got such a long affiliation with it, and that like they'll both be issue number 1s, because if you have the momentum of announcing your new license and getting everyone ready for it, like think of all the fans who have tried or avoided the IDW continuation of the Marvel run. If you say to them, like, let's say Hama is involved, if you say to them, like, there's a new issue number 1 coming in first quarter of 2023, they'll probably say, I'd like to try that. And if you say, there's issue 301, some of them might say, well, that's really cool. And some of them might say, do I have to read the previous 300 issues? And some of them will say, well, I didn't like the previous 150 issues from IDW. So even though it's new, I don't know if I want to. So I think just for the clean slate of it, it would not be 301. I do think that if Hama is asked to write a comic, generally, G.I. Joe or otherwise, he's a working professional. He's not retired. And like everyone, he's got bills to pay. And also, I think he understands that if your name is out there with new work, then you can attract new fans, or you can maybe get more work.
More new work, yeah.
And so, yeah. So I don't think we'll see an issue 301.
I'm happy, really, that we're going to, that somebody else is going to take a stab of it. Like I said, I wasn't real happy with the last several years of IDW, and I think just as a fan of different IPs, and this is something that we kind of brushed on in earlier episodes when we talked about, when we were kids, we were able to read the comic and watch the cartoon, and there wasn't really, for me and most of the kids that I knew, there wasn't any confusion, that why is Scarlet acting this way during the cartoon and she doesn't act that way? We just knew they were separate things. So anytime now, especially like a company loses a license, like Dark Horse when they lose their Alien titles or Star Wars titles or something, you had this huge issue with the fans saying, oh, well, now Disney's saying that all the stuff that Dark Horse made is not canon. And it's whatever. Forget canon. Canon is what you like, what you remember. And like I've always said, my canon for G.I. Joe is basically 1 to 100. And that's it. A few things that I've read here or there after that, but that's really what sticks with me. I'm okay reading other stuff, but for me, that's my G.I. Joe. But I don't have any problem separating it out. So I'm always excited to see, especially now, I'm curious to see what's done with it. And I hope that Kirkman gets it, because I do like a lot of his stuff that he's involved with.
I'm excited about this new version of Silent Interlude that just got announced.
Let's talk about that.
So Marvel has had some success in the last 2 or 3 years where it takes a famous key or first issue, like Fantastic Four #1, or was it Avengers? It's like Avengers #4 and Captain America #100, I think, and have modern artists each draw one page using the original script. And then they can print it, they can publish it as this, like $5.99, like oversized issue. And people who like the original can get this new take on it. People who have never seen the original can read the original, but it's modern. People who don't want to read the original because it's sort of old fashioned, like, Jack Kirby drew that in the 60s. So it's sort of the best of both worlds. I like looking at them. I don't actually own any because I think it's, they don't actually, I like the idea of them. I actually don't really want to read them because I would just want the original, or I would want all these talented new people to do some new stuff. But hey,
yes,
when you roll this formula over to my favorite thing, G.I. Joe, it's also a little distracting. Like, I think the whole idea of it is this artifice of all these modern artists redrawing like classic comics pages, but using the original layouts. I think it's sort of be like if you went to a concert for your favorite band and like they were up on stage playing, but like somehow there was no sound, but then like standing next to you, like there were clones of all those like musical performers like singing into your ear. So like it's sort of live and it's sort of new, but it's sort of the old thing. That analogy doesn't entirely work. Anyway, so like it's like, oh, Steve McNiven is like redrawing a Jack Kirby page from Avengers 4, where like the Avengers find Captain America, and it's the Kirby layouts, but it's like modern 2021 Steve McNiven's like very crisp art with like very fancy computer coloring. I love it. It's also just sort of distracting. I can't actually like read it and take it in. It's just an object to look at.
Yeah. Okay,
so, but if you take this and you roll it over to G.I. Joe for me, like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy 5 of these. like what? Like Neitho Diaz and like Shannon Gallant and I'm only guessing. I haven't, like all these wonderful people who've drawn G.I. Joe, and we keep interviewing them, and I keep saying, I sure love this person to come back and draw more issues of G.I. Joe. It's like, does Silent Interlude need to get redrawn and republished? No. Should we? Sure. Yes. I'm buying 5 for myself. This isn't even like so I can get a variant cover. It's like, no, I'm just buying 5 because when G.I. Joe hit issue 150, I just bought 5 copies because I was really excited. And then when it hit 155, I was excited and sad, and I bought 5 copies.
Yeah, it's going to be, it's going to be fascinating. Obviously you can't read it and experience it like a normal sort of inverted commas comic book, because it's a comic we all know and love, and also so familiar with as well. But it'll be fascinating to actually see it. And I think it's advertised as am I making this up, 72 pages?
It's going to have essays by people, and then it's like a self-referential story by Larry Hama.
Yeah, so the essays from people including Larry Hama will be excellent, and hopefully IDW will sort of have this last furlong of their run of GI Joe, sort of dropping some really interesting projects for the 40th anniversary. Hopefully we get to hear about a few more.
We know that we've got these two $8 reprints, these 100-page reprints, Yojo and Cobra, which each is going to reprint, it's a little hard to tell, 4 or 5 issues of Larry Hama comics, like best Joe stories and best Cobra stories. They have both been solicited. Your comic book store can order them. They both have new cover art. We don't yet know what issues are in them.
Yeah, I find it a little bit harder to get excited about a reprint of a comic that I already have. I'm sure it will get it'll find new readers who hasn't necessarily experienced those comics in the first time round. Yeah.
My comment about the silent interlude, I'll get it because it is interesting, but I would rather pay $150 for an artist edition of 21 than $8 for this. I mean, 21 is a perfect comic for me. You can't make it better. I'm still going to be looking at somebody's second best effort at a perfect comic.
There is one small way in which it's not righting a historical wrong, but it is making what I think is a fascinating historical retroactive adjustment, which is that seemingly Larry Hama and Steve Leialoha are going to draw the cover for this.
Oh, nice.
And they have only ever drawn interior pages of G.I. Joe together, plus a variant cover for issue 275. And, of course, Ed Hannigan and Klaus Janson drew the original cover for issue 21. This has many times been miscredited as Larry Hama pencils, right? But it's like in the letters page 2 issues later that Ed Hannigan, who was doing a lot of covers for Marvel in the late 70s and early 80s, Ed Hannigan penciled that cover. And so not that Hama needs to somehow magically do the cover for this issue that he drew the interiors for that we all identify him with, but neat.
Yeah, absolutely. I missed that little detail when it was announced. But
I mean, I think it's kind of cool that you're going to have essays and stuff like that and comments from the creators, other creators. That's going to be the really interesting part to hear how other artists and writers and stuff were influenced by it. I mean, that I think makes it a little more than just a reprint or... Please,
IDW, put silent... What's it? Silent Prelude?
Silent Prelude, yes.
Yeah,
what is
please.
That?
It's so, okay, actually, we'll get there in our podcast. Devil's Due published that 6-issue miniseries, Snake Eyes Declassified.
Yeah.
Which takes all of the Hama Snake Eyes mythology and strings together in chronological order with some new information. When that was reprinted in a softcover, it had a new 5-page story, only available in the softcover, written by Larry Hama and drawn by Ron Wagner, which is a prologue to Silent Interlude. Very little happens. It's Snake Eyes is on the C-130 before he jumps out of it for the beginning of... but A, it's never been reprinted. B, that softcover is expensive because it didn't have a high print run, and because of this, people want it. And C... when last year IDW published a 48-page special reprinting issue 21 and also issue 21B, which was the toy pack-in comic, and it was called The Complete Silence. It did not include this prelude. So this would be a good time to squeeze that in.
Absolutely. Okay. Yep. I really hope
I saw Mark mention that online, but I didn't know what it was. I'd never heard of it.
I asked Ron Wagner a couple months ago if he remembered doing it, and he didn't really remember doing it. And this is not to say that Ron Wagner is checked out on G.I. Joe, because he has drawn 2 issues G.I. Joe in the last 10 years. I think this is to say, I think I was sort of wondering if he still had the original art, because I'm assuming if IDW ever reprints this, they'll have to scan the original collection, and then we'd get a second generation. I don't know if they have the color files that you'd print from the way that they do for all the disavowed issues. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I was sort of wondering if Ron Wagner has the original art, maybe they could get scanned and recolored. And I was not asking him like, hey, can you go through everything you own and find out if you have this? I was sort of asking casually, like, hey, do you remember this? And he said, not really, which is, I think it's a way of saying like, hey, freelance illustrator who's drawn monthly comics for 30 years.
Yeah.
Do you remember
I'm not
5
gonna
pages?
remember those 5 pages.
Do you remember
Yes.
5 pages you drew around 2005? It's like, well, not right now, but if you hum a few bars, maybe I can sing the song. So I've sort of meant to follow up, if those pages are like in the hands of a collector. Well, anyway.
Even the second generation scan, I think that's better than nothing. Get it out there. Never been reprinted, as you say.
And the fact that, unfortunately, because a few people have talked about it, I think people start to get their hopes up. Like, oh, is it amazing? It's like, no. It's just 5 pages. It's just like the first
It's
bite
just
of
cool.
it's just the first bite of a piece of cake. But like, it should be out there. So like, don't get your hopes up, everyone. Just like include it somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's that to look forward to. And then the other breaking bit of news was that literally just a few minutes ago, without too much fanfare, the Kickstarter for the 3D Joe's Collecting the Art of G.I. Joe omnibus hardcover was put live on Kickstarter. And the amazing thing on this seems to have been that it's been fully funded. It's met its funding goal before Carson actually got around to announcing that it was live. So it's met its initial funding goal of what was it, £25,000. So that's $35,000 within just the first few minutes before it had even been announced. So this is incredible.
Wow.
and sort of hopefully a good sign that it will do very well. So what this is $100 gets you one omnibus hardcover, apparently limited to 2,000 copies, 480 pages plus, depending on stretch goals, 12.5 inches by 13 inches, so oversized. It's a celebration of the painted art of G.I. Joe, a real American hero. Every carded figure, vehicle, playset, poster, and peripheral product featuring painted art released from 1982 to 1994 with all sorts of unreleased paintings, some bonus content and interviews and whatnot. So I'm sure it will be an incredible book. And I think any G.I. Joe fan will be missing out if they don't go ahead and get a copy of this, because what we know already from the products that they've already released, they're pretty incredible as they are. So and this is an upgrade to that. Lots of new additional elements not included in the first book, as well as rescans of lots of the images as well to get them even more crispy than they were the first time around. So I will get on and back this very shortly. I'm on the page and it's sort of just ticking up by a few £100 every couple of seconds. It's funny to see.
I have a couple of those original volumes. They're nice. And as soon as I was talking to Carson and he said something about, oh, we're gonna do an omnibus one day, and I was like, sign me up. I said, I'm there. I mean, I haven't backed this yet, but I fully intend to.
I'll back it too. I have the slipcase with all the volumes, and
Ooh, you got the slipcase.
Maybe in 6 months when I get my hardcover, I will for a discount sell my slipcase complete softcovers to some sort of lucky fan who wants it, but unlucky fan who couldn't get or couldn't afford the expensive hardcover.
Well,
yeah, it's worth saying. I think everyone who's listening knows what this is, but it's worth saying that each of these images where Carson and a handful of other people get a boxed toy, like a mint boxed toy, and light it very nicely, evenly, and then photograph it or scan the front of it, and then meticulously paint out in Photoshop scratches and scuffs, glare, and price tags. And it's a real labor of love. Like, you have to be a really loving, talented, anal retentive patient
yes.
person to want to do this and then to do it And, you know, if you've listened to our previous episode with Carson is very nice and is not doing this for money or acclaim. He's just doing it because he wants to, and like Joe fans really want it. So it's the Feel Good Joe Kickstarter of January 2022. Shall we wrap up? I guess the final bit of news. Speaking of Silent Interlude and that cover by Ed Hannigan and Klaus Janson. A week ago, the original artwork sold for a lot of money. Right?
Yes.
It was exactly a lot of money.
Was it like 312 or something finally?
It was upwards of 300,000. I can't remember the exact amount, but 300,000 plus. Someone with some deep pockets went out and got it. And if you want
deeper than mine.
If you want to hear a detailed discussion about that, you can check out the Felix Comic podcast where he talks to a friend of the show, Gene, about that whole sequence of events. He talks to him just before the auction and just after. So talk about what they think it might go to, what Gene might do in terms of putting in a bid, and how
Gene
it
didn't get it?
turned out. He didn't. It was a little bit too rich for him. I think it was almost double what he was prepared to go for.
Oh,
so
golly.
So unfortunately, the cover was not reunited with the interior pages. It's a crazy cuckoo art market out there at the moment.
We should note that as far as we know, this is the most expensive G.I. Joe anything to sell.
Well,
right?
What did number one go for? Didn't the art for number one sell not too long ago?
All of the interior art?
No, just the cover for the original 82, a couple years ago. 3-4 years ago, maybe.
The G.I. Joe issue 1 cover turned up in around about 2018, and Metropolis Comics sold it privately, so we don't know exactly what it went for. It was rumored to go for around about 100 to 125,000. So don't know exactly when it went for, but just goes to show how the the comic book market has for original art has just gone cuckoo bananas in the last few years.
And I mentioned sort of G.I. Joe anything, right? Like I haven't followed like the auction houses that sell movie props, but in the last 10 years, like you can buy costumes and props from these 3 G.I. Joe movies. Like toy art sells privately between collectors, like A Real American Hero, 1980s, paintings for figures and packages, comics pages and covers sell, CGC, like, mint condition toys sell. As far as we know, this is the most expensive G.I. Joe anything. This is the most expensive G.I. Joe sale of an object.
Yeah, I think even a real life his tank might struggle to get that kind of money. Cool. So that is all the news that's happening in the world of G.I. Joe comics this week.
All the news that's fit to print.
And some that isn't. So I think that is us done on the news front. So let's sign off. If you want more of the same, less news and more about a deep dive into what's going on in the world of the G.I. Joe comics. We're continuing our look at the ARA issues as they come out, and also the Devil's Due comics. We're doing our deep dive back into Devil's Due history. We started with issue 1 from 2001. And we've made our way up to issue 27 or so now. So join us for that. All of the details are over at talkingjoe.co.uk. So let's do a quick sign out with our regular sign out. It's us done, but remembering that
nobody beats Talking Joe,
a real American podcast
with guys from all over the place. Later, guys.